Well, welcome to the very first Ford's Hospital Workforce Chat, where I'm joined by thought leaders in employee attraction, hospital staffing, roster sustainability, burnout prevention, and importantly, workforce retention, right here on LinkedIn. Occasionally, we'll hear from experts outside of the healthcare space, but today we're going to hear from someone deeply intertwined in delivering efficient and high-performing value-based care within the hospital environment. Hello, good sir, Simon McMahon.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Good fella, good fella. I'm just going to give you a bit of an intro in Simon's career and life, and then we'll crack on. So Simon has led a diverse career from team leading in surgical nursing to preventative primary healthcare working in the NHS, and into emergency nursing within Australia, and now medical board management. He's worked in the Royal Navy and has some musical talents, which I'm yet to hear, but I do believe they are present somewhere. I've had the privilege of working alongside Simon for many years now and seen him thrive in the Australian healthcare system after moving here from the UK. I wanted to chat to Simon today to hear about his experience of being recruited to come to Australia and hear some of his tips of how organisations can find talent overseas and other markets to strengthen their workforce. Was that about right, Simon? Is there anything else you would like to add in that introduction there?
Just all around good guy, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't have that in there, but yeah, I'll put that in there for next time, eh? I guess firstly, mate, we have worked alongside each other closely over the last 5 to 6 years, and pretty keen to hear you talk about just how you ended up here in Australia. I know you've told me parts, but we do have a workforce crisis going on, and you are a success story. So it'd be keen to hear just how you ended up here in Australia and what some of that process looked like from a higher level.
Yeah, so I was looking at a change, something new, I suppose. I wanted to come and see what all the fuss was about in Australia. You always see the kangaroos and the white sandy beaches and the Sydney Opera House. And I think at that moment, it was probably about right in my career that me and my partner, Nicola, wanted to come over and just explore it, because we thought, if we don't do it now, would we regret it when we were in retirement age? And the answer was yes. So I wanted to see what was available and what was out there, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and I totally get that. And so I'm just picking apart some of what you're saying, because I think it's really interesting how it's not all about the work opportunities, where there are great work opportunities. There's a lot of lifestyle opportunities there that you were chasing, and you were at a point in your career that you could make that change, or you're wanting to do something different, and you may end up back in the UK, but what some of the opportunities in Australia could have offered you. Did you think about that more deeply from a career perspective?
Yeah, I did. And I looked at the pay. Obviously, the pay is one of the bigger things that you need to look at. So could we afford to come over and live comfortably versus staying in the UK with the NHS pay? And the answer was yes. And my partner managed to get a job whilst we were over here as well. So with both of us working, financially, it did make sense. And we looked at property in Mackay as well. And if you compare the house prices compared to your earnings in the UK to where we're currently living in Mackay now, Mackay does win with house prices, and the same for a lot of rural Queensland. You get more space, you get more house for your money, and you get the outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So you took that plunge and realized that you were going to get ahead and you were going to progress, and every opportunity that you could get come to Australia seemed like a very rational process. What I'm finding, and it'd be interesting to hear from your own management perspective in Mackay, what I'm finding is that pay is not always the highest priority for some people nowadays. That next generation are looking for other opportunities and things to fulfill their life. There's a lot of work-life balance discussion. There's also whether they can make a big difference, whether they can make an impact into their own life, but into the team and into other patients' lives. So I think it's, interesting to hear how, the financial element was important to you, and, you needed it to feel certain and to progress ahead. But were there anything else? Was there anything else that you could pinpoint where you go, well, that's the cherry on the cake? You needed the pay, but where are the other things going? All right, they're gonna set us ahead. We're gonna just enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, so lifestyle was a big clinch point as well. So I quite like, I'm keen at sailing, so I enjoy sailing. And when me and my partner came over here a few years ago, we hired a car and we travelled the East Coast. We went as far as Cape Tribulation, and then we hugged the coast right the way around through the major cities, round to Adelaide, and then up into Port Augusta. So we didn't really see everything that Australia has to offer, but we cut through some of the touristy bits. And what we liked was the tropical North Queensland, Central Queensland. We enjoyed the white silica sands of the Whitsundays. We liked the fact that you could just hire a bareboat charter catamaran and sail it yourself around the Whitsundays for a week. There was just so much more that we could get from this region than probably some of the other regions in Australia, but definitely more than the UK. The UK was long days as a nurse, so you do your 7 till 7:30 or even 7 till 8. And then you find that you're going to work in the dark and then coming home in the dark. Your extra days were recovery, and you just felt quite burnt out a lot of the time because we don't have ratios in the UK, which is another selling point of Queensland, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can definitely resonate with, wanting to make that move for other variety aspects, like having that lifestyle ability to enjoy things personally, and feel like you've got other things to do, and not. We don't want to be always at work. You don't want to be always consumed. And so if you've been able to detach and enjoy yourself. So, that relocating piece, was there any difficulties doing it from the UK? Like, had you made up your mind? So you got recruited from obviously in the UK, and was there any difficulties there? What was some of the positives that you got out of that recruitment piece based in the UK?
So we'd already made the decision that we wanted to come to Australia and try it out. We had a rough idea of where we'd like to go, and it was around the Mackay and Whitsundays. And I was working at the Infantry Battle School in Brecon in Wales. I was working as a nurse on the army base there, and I couldn't make the Birmingham expedition, which is where Mackay were recruiting. So I called them and I said, I can't make today. Is there any possibility we can schedule an interview? And then they called me back and we had the interview, and they said, right, okay, and we'll start you in a few months' time. But to get to that point, I already had my permanent residency. So I'd already gone through the process myself of sending all my documents to APRA, sending it through to get the Vivo, get the visas as well. And that process takes quite a long time, and it can be quite expensive if you're going through an agent. And a lot of the work ends up coming back on yourself anyway. So I think that process is quite complicated and it's quite long.
Yeah, yeah. I totally hear that. So you were a bit prepared. You were sort of had your feet in the sand. So much the Mackay with Sunday Sand before heading this direction, and you sort of were moving that direction, and it was a good opportunity, and it was good timing that Mackay were there in the UK advertising or recruiting. So perfect opportunity. Do you think is it a good strategy to instead of doing a massive campaign initially, is to send out some marketing recruits or some people like yourself, or even like a small team, to infiltrate the scene and get people thinking about it before you do a massive campaign? Do you think that would be effective?
Yeah, I do. I think if you just turn up on the day expecting hordes of nurses to know that you're there, you're probably not going to get many takers. I think if you plan it in advance, put it in areas where nurses will see these, so such as Nursing Times. If you can get onto the NHS jobs websites as well, there's an ad. Use social media. There's lots out there now with digital technology that you can reach the nurses. And then if you start a campaign probably 3 months in advance, sometimes you'll get a few feelers for where you should target your resources. So they might not always be in the major cities. They might be, if you're looking to recruit rurally like Mackay, they might be in your smaller cities or your smaller towns. And so you're looking like for like places.
Yeah, I really like that. Having a strategy around it. Thinking about what you need, what sort of demographic you have, and what demographic of person you want. And because you fitted a mold, and they may not have known this, but you fitted it like an avatar or an identity that really suited for yourself, but for them as well. And so having a bit of an idea about that is really important. And hiring a digital social media officer or someone to really infiltrate some of that social media's campaign in those environments is super important, because all of a sudden people are thinking about you, or you're in their faces when they're not. They might have thought about you when they were just relaxing, or they might have thought, I wouldn't mind going overseas. And then if you're in there, you're just in their periphery every now and then. I think it'd be, it's a really positive strategy.
I think it's important that nurses interview nurses as well.
Yes.
And I think it's important that you do a lot of the face-to-face stuff as a nurse, because you can then get like a real feel for the type of person that wants to come across, and whether they're going to waste your time going through the interview process to then just go somewhere else, or whether they're actually committed to it. And you can have that personal approach, like Alex Ferguson. So Alex Ferguson was the manager of Manchester United for, I think it was about 27 years. And what tipped him over some of the other better managers was that he'd fly to them, or he'd fly them to him, and they'd bring his family with him. So Alex Ferguson would speak to the mother of the family first, and then just let them know that they were going to be looked after. And that's how Alex Ferguson managed to get the best talent over some of the other managers, because he made it personal. He made the family feel a bit safer about them coming to the other side of the world, even though it might have been just from Spain at the time, or Italy. And I think that personal approach we need to have if we're going to try and recruit overseas and get good talent that want to stay, because it's a big move for people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's super interesting. Great example of having a fine or understanding your target audience or your target market of nurses, doctors, whoever it is, understanding what they need to be feeling certain to come over, but what else they need personally, professionally, is super important if you want to bring them into your organization. That's lots of insights there, and I think we could talk about this for ages. If anyone wanted to reach out to you and talk to a bit more, where can they find you? Is the best place LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely. Just add me on LinkedIn and message me. Happy to answer some questions. I think there's a lot of things that we could do better for recruitment. Yeah, if you want some advice, message me.
Absolutely. I'm sure there'll be lots of people wanting to have a chat and hear about your first instance or first person relationship with coming to Australia and moving overseas, as lots of organizations look to overseas markets for talent. But thanks, mate, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, thank you. Bye now.